Hello. Hey. Welcome to the short testimonial or case study that I'm doing with a long-term client of mine. Her name's Dyess. She's been client of mine for I think over a year already. And my name's June, by the way, certified life coach. And I'm excited to give you a little insight on what one of my clients has experienced working with me over the past year of being a participant in my group coaching program. So her name's Dyess. As I said before, she is from the States. She is teaching social and emotional learning to kids and teens. Very beautiful work you're doing there. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure, June. My passion is youth. I want to help the next generation. Um, they're they're facing so many challenges right now, especially after COVID. And so I'm very passionate about mental wellness and emotional intelligence, not only for youth, but also for adults. So um, I've been a yoga teacher for many years, but I also do high school teaching as well. So I'm getting back to the yoga thing now and in the dance as well. I'll talk a little bit more about that when you ask me the questions. Okay.
Yeah, I know that you've also been into ecstatic dance since a long, long time. This is also a
Yes.
passion of yours. And as it's a part of our coaching program, I've seen how passionate you are about the dancing. Yeah, so let's take us back to the moment before you signed up to the group coaching program of mine. It was a
Mhm.
little over a year ago, as I remember correctly. You've been in
Yeah.
this journey with me for, well, you've been on this journey for a long time, but since you came into my group coaching container, it's also been a while. And I would love to know, and for you to share with all of us, what were like three initial things that, or three initial problems that you were having before you decided to join the group coaching program?
Yeah. I'm a trauma survivor, so I've always struggled with the after effects of that, childhood trauma. So, um, I was, I've always struggled with PTSD, and I've always struggled with trying to stay in the present moment and stay grounded and not worry. You know, like my brain just snaps into anxiety sometimes because of the trauma that happened to me. And so and I go through different phases of the PTSD. I call them, yeah, PTSD episodes, but it's very difficult. And I've had to find coping mechanisms to deal with it over the years. And um, yeah, I met you. You know how they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will come. And that's what I feel like with you, June. I mean, it's just like you came into my life at the absolute perfect time. And I was struggling with a separation from my husband, as well as you know, just a lot of things going on that I felt like I wanted to develop personally even more than I've been on the personal development path for a long time, or spiritual path, but I just wanted to take it deeper. So that's when you arrived. I knew. I was like, okay, he's in Bali. He's from Switzerland. This is perfect. So, yeah, because that this is so cliche, but that movie Eat, Pray, Love. I mean, I've always really felt a connection with that movie, and how she is in India, and she goes through this whole spiritual growth and then ends up in Bali, and meets her real love of her life. So, it's just, I love that story. And it's based on a true story. So I hope that'll be me one day. Like when I get a plate now and I pick out what I would like to eat, and I arrange it just like she did. I always think about that movie,
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, okay, you know what? It's not what your partner wants to eat, or you know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's a form of self-love. So
Hmm.
I think that's what I really have been working on the most is how to be a good partner in a relationship, and how to love myself just as much, so that I can show up for somebody whole.
Yeah. Oh. So I understand, right, that like the relationship aspect for you was also a big initiator to join the group coaching. Because as you just said right now, and I've observed that with a lot of clients that I've worked with, is that the root of how you engage in a relationship is you and the way you love yourself. And I've also come to realize that a lot of my past relationships weren't as healthy as they could be. And that was all, I could all like track that back to the way that I had a relationship with myself. So we have the same experience here, right?
Yeah,
Thanks for
definitely.
sharing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've dealt with depression, I've dealt with anxiety, panic attacks, all those things. And so I always found yoga was the best way for me to ground and stay in my body,
Hmm.
not dissociate. So but then what you've taught me has developed it much further. So
Mm.
yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about when we look at the time when you were in the group coaching program, and you still are, since I've created it or reshaped it into a lifelong group coaching container. Before it was a 12-week one, and now it's lifelong access. So you're still in it. Um, what would you like say? What were those three takeaways? Like you just said before, the things that you learned in the program, what were three things that you took out of the program that you noticed would create a shift in your relationship to yourself and as a partner to someone else?
I think the journaling that you taught us, and the prompts that you taught us, the questions in the journal to help you focus your day and create a good morning routine. But not only just a morning routine, but just organize what's going to be happening in my life. Okay, well, what do I want to achieve, and how am I going to get there? Right. And those questions you gave us to ask and then journal about, that was huge for me. That just, I felt like helped me so much to begin to explore, um, you know, my, what I really, what my true highest choice would be for my life. Yeah. So that, what I say, is one takeaway. Another, of course, is the ecstatic dance, which absolutely blew my mind that you mentioned Julia Cameron, who, The Artist's Way. I had read that years ago, and nobody I've known really read it either. And then when you mentioned that, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Morning pages? You know about morning pages? And just, the brain dump and writing 3 pages. I've done that for a long time, but I had stopped doing it. And then you just reminded me to get back on track with that, because it just helps you so much with the day, to not, just project any of that stuff onto other people, just to get it out on paper,
Yeah,
it just
yeah. I
so
remember
yeah.
I introduced all of these tools, but what I also put a lot of focus on is integration, like that you are consistently
Mhm,
in a momentum and surrounded by people that do these practices and that are motivated to do these practices.
mhm.
So how do you remember that? Like, do you remember as at some point you would kind of like, I always see them as train rails, you know, and at
Mm,
some point you would get into these train rails and
mhm.
start driving the train with a couple of people. That's what a momentum always feels like to me. How did it feel like to you to become a part of a group like that?
Yeah, it did. It felt like the energy, the vibration was raised by our deep breathing, by our meditations, all the meditations that you provide for us to do. And then Of course, the journaling and yeah, and the deep breath work, that was huge. But it's funny you mentioned the train tracks because at one point I feel like I just fell off the tracks. And I went into my darkness, but in a good way because you know, without facing the darkness within oneself, it's just that whole Carl Jungian thing. You cannot truly be as light as you could possibly be. So I think I actually really through this process allowed myself to go darker than I've ever gone. Not I'm laughing, but it wasn't fun. But at the same time, I feel like it has lifted me or catapulted me into to a whole nother level of spiritual growth. So
Mm. It's so beautiful to hear that. And I observe that, and I'm really grateful to be able to see these processes because I understand that being happy and being joyful all the time can feel like riding a nice wave or being always on the same train tracks,
mm-hmm,
but it's not. As you just said so nicely, we really learn to also embrace the darker parts of us and
mm-hmm,
to learn the lessons from there because there's a lot to be learned. And if we don't allow that to have space,
mm-hmm.
we are not being our own medicine. We're not being our own healer. Indeed.
And the minimalist stuff you taught us about was super awesome. Um, and and so I had to face, I was in a house that I'd lived in for 5 years, and there was a lot of clutter and stuff. And I had to, it was like the hardest thing I've ever had to do was just like say, okay, I have to pull myself up out of this hole of mess and just get rid of all this excess that I don't need. And so it felt so good. I think I dumped 40 bags of trash at the front of my house. I'm not kidding you. That's what I did all summer long. And now I'm in a new place. It's bright. I still have some things, that I could probably get rid of, but it's just feels so much lighter now. I feel like I'm in my purpose. And then the school where I was teaching, they dropped my French program, and then I had to go to a different school. The different school has a lot of kids that are underprivileged, and I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be, even though I was fighting it the whole way, and it's not going to be easy. Don't get me wrong, So, but all the tools you've given me, I feel like are helping me to get stronger and stronger. I have to be strong spiritually to just even walk in the doors of this school with all these kids and what they're carrying, So, and you taught us to keep good boundaries. So, and so I try very hard to do that. Like I take a nice shower after I leave school so that I just get that energy off of me and that kind of thing you've taught us. So, yeah. Yeah. So
Beautiful.
lots of takeaways.
Right? I'm hearing boundaries, clear boundaries. I'm hearing implemented rituals in your days that help
Yes.
you generate those
Yes.
boundaries. And I'm also hearing like facing the darker parts, facing the shadows, which now has allowed you to be more capable of the light, it seems.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's so
exactly.
beautiful.
And so you say, for people that have never done this, if they're looking to be, like you say, innerly aligned, it's very true that this, I feel, there's days I'm not completely aligned, but I would say in general that this has brought all the pieces together. It definitely has brought all the pieces together.
Wow. What would you say to somebody who maybe has heard of the program, has heard of my group coaching, or has even looked at it but hasn't made the decision yet? What would you say to them right now?
I would say they'd be a fool not to sign up.
Well, after those takeaways that you've just described, I
I
agree.
hate to be so blunt about it, but it would be the best thing they could do for themselves. It's hard to sometimes make a decision just for you. Again, like I said, self-love and all that stuff. It sounds all great in theory, but actually doing it takes strength to encourage to take those steps and actually take the time for yourself because most people are too busy not doing that because they want to run away from themselves or whatever they're dealing with. And I think that's why we're here, is to learn to love one another better. But we can't love one another better if we're all locked up in our issues, you know.
Couldn't
So
have said that any better. Thank you so much, Kat. Thank you for
yeah,
sharing a bite of your experiences and how this group coaching has helped you, supported you, shifted you, and changed you. And for everybody who's watching this, who's listening to this, know that the group coaching container is available. It is designed for change makers, activists, and vegans. And it's a lifelong group coaching container, which means you can access lifelong weekly group calls from the moment you enroll. You'll access a whole universe of mindfulness practices. Some have been mentioned by Kat today. Thank you. And you'll get to work with me as your life coach, and I'd be excited to get to know anybody out there, get to know you out there via free clarity call. I offer these to just touch base and see if we're a match to work together. The links to a free clarity call and the link to the group coaching program I'll leave below. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll leave it below. If you're seeing this on my website or anywhere else, you will find it. So thank you everybody
everybody
for watching.
sign up.
Everybody sign up now.
Everybody sign up.
Thank you so much, Kat. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime.